So enter a new political player on the political sphere in South Africa. The Rise Mzansi movement describes itself as an inclusive, people-driven political movement in the making. It's built on a new political culture. The leaders of Rise Mzansi say it was born as a result of broken politics that no longer meet the needs of South Africans, and they believe that the political change really is the only way for the country to go. Songezo Zibi is the leader of the Rise Mzansi, and he joins us now in studio. Good morning, welcome to the agenda. Really good to have you with us.
Good morning, Naledi, and thanks for having me.
I think let's start off with clarifying where you've been and how we've landed up where we are right now. I think people think Songezo Zibi, and a lot of us think Rivonia Circle. What happened to that relationship?
So I left Rivonia Circle at the end of March to focus exclusively on the work of Rise Mzansi. Rise Mzansi's existence partly came out of the Rivonia Circle's work in communities across the country, in 8 of the 9 provinces by December last year, and all 9 provinces by the first quarter of this year. So now I'm completely focused on Rise Mzansi, and Rivonia Circle continues to exist as a think tank, as a civic agitator, as a civic educator, and that critical work that is required in our democracy.
But was working with the Rivonia Circle for you from the very beginning, I suppose, a feeding ground for you to learn what it is that you need to put together when you put together a political movement?
Rivonia Circle has always been what we call a teachable moment for all of us in South Africa, because we are used to politics being only party politics. Part of what we've been doing in communities across South Africa is to show that politics is everybody's business. Whenever South African citizens get together as a body, whether they are part of political parties or not, they can have political discussions, reach political resolutions, and take direct political action that may include participating in an election, but doesn't have to. And that's what Rivonia Circle was all about. Because of those interactions, we have learned a heck of a lot over the last 18 months.
So let's actually understand what Rise Mzansi actually is. I think over the past few years, we've heard it even from Musi Maimane, for instance, the idea of a political movement.
Yeah.
When you say Rise Mzansi is a political movement, what does that mean? Are you a political party? Are you contesting elections next year?
We will be contesting elections next year and beyond, but let me explain why it is a movement rather than just a political party. The first is that movements are not composed of just members. They are usually an alliance of organizations right across the country. Sometimes they are global as a movement, but generally right across South Africa. And we think that the kind of challenges we have need the participation and input of South Africans from all walks of life. And certainly some of the work that we have done over the last few months is to link with and build very strong alliances across the country towards a common goal. That's the first thing. The second thing is that what we are proposing tomorrow is not a political manifesto. It is a fundamental change of South Africa as a whole. We have lost something as South Africans. People complain about lack of leadership, but there's also lack of vision. There is also something that's damaged in our soul. Think of when we used to feel when Bafana Bafana was playing. We've lost the meaning or understanding or feeling of success, of knowing how to win, of what it is to do things right, of what even order looks like. Before I came on, we were talking about the late Loyiso Nkohla, another person gunned down in broad daylight. Changing that is not the work of a political party. It is the work of all of society. So you have to build a movement to change the way society thinks, perceives, and understands itself.
So who's part of, so I'm trying to understand who's part of the movement. I mean, when we saw Musi Maimane go the route of a political movement, and I bring that example up because it's important.
Yes.
He was gunning at really starting to garner some of the independent candidates that were running for elections. So who are these alliances?
Towards an election, and that's the critical difference. Political power is really critical in what we're doing, but we're looking for societal change, and therefore we have held discussions and reached agreement, not on the idea of contesting an election with the churches, with traditional leaders, with youth organizations, and so on, with business and other organizations, on the basis of the vision and the broad objective, so that they can play their own role within their spaces in realizing that vision.
Okay.
We will lay out that vision tomorrow.
Right. I don't have a lot of time. Right now, we're 12 months before the elections next year. You're already starting to hear pacts that are being discussed. Have you decided whether or not you're joining the Moonshot Pact, or where you sit, where the coalition negotiations are going to be going next year?
You know, in your intro, you spoke about a new political culture. The culture we have is the culture of individual political leaders making deals on behalf of the South African people without even checking the mandate. We don't think that should continue. We should get mandate from people. So we will lay out a vision tomorrow. We'll be very specific in terms of the things that need to change. And then we'll go around the country to about 35 towns and cities and townships and villages, again, to share this vision. And only after that may you get into any kind of conversation with anyone about what to do. Two
more questions before I let you go, because again, we're pressed for time. The Rivonia Circle was quite outspoken around its position around the Electoral Amendment Bill that was signed into law yesterday. You've taken issue with just how it's structured, right? The requirements for independent candidates and how they don't match up with the requirements of all political parties. The independent candidates simply cannot tick some of those boxes. Are you, with the Rise Mzansi, taking that matter forward? That's the first one. The second one is funders. Can we talk about funders yet for Rise Mzansi?
So let's start with the first one. So part of what we will be proposing tomorrow is comprehensive political reforms in South Africa. That Electoral Amendment Bill is a scam. It cannot stay like that. It's designed to make the democracy to stay weak, firstly. So
just clarify for me what the issue was, for the viewer who has not been following it, what the issue with the bill was.
There are many issues, but one of them, to help the viewer to understand, is that a political party, for instance, needs fewer signatures to get on the ballot than an independent. Why? No idea. That's just one example. Secondly, a constituency is an entire province. So if you are from Port Shepstone, you must go and campaign in Hlabialingana in northern KZN. Why? How does that make any sense? So there are things like that in the bill that just don't make sense, but they've put them there to make it difficult for independent candidates to participate.
And funders?
The second thing about funding is, firstly, we actually are quite happy that we've got the Electoral Funding Act as it is, because it brings transparency into the process. Now, one of the things we've learned about being a new political party that has not been announced, that is not on the ballot, is that it is incredibly difficult to get funding, because in isiXhosa we say uthetha ngekati esengxoweni. So we are now beginning the process of scaling up our fundraising so that we can do the work that we do. All I can tell you is that we still have over 90% to go in terms of our funding requirement. And when it's time to declare, as the Independent Electoral Act does, we will declare and South Africans can see. Last point I want to make is, we want to encourage South Africans to be small donors. 10 Rand, 50 Rand, 100 Rand, so that that list that we publish has thousands of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We look forward to hearing the declaration and to see how you do in the next year's election. It's really a pleasure having you in studio with us.
Thanks, Naledi.
Songezo Zibi, the leader of Rise Mzansi, the latest and newest political movement.